It's intentional. I'm not the only one she's done it to. There's another landlord, the landlord before me, and the landlord before that, and the landlord before that landlord.
Just totally destroyed the house.
What is that? This was supposed to be our family home.
There are tenants that are educated about the procedures and the delays, and they definitely use them for their advantage.
4 times makes me very suspicious that there is something more going on.
Clearly she was a professional. She smiled at me, this big Cheshire grin, and she said, "We're not going anywhere."
I'm Robin Miller in Orleans, a suburb here in Ottawa, where over a period of 4 years, 4 different landlords say they've all fallen victim to the same professional tenants. The term is used to describe a person who knows how Ontario's landlord-tenant board system works. They know it so well they can use it to avoid paying rent. And that's exactly what the landlord says happened here. She's still in the process of fixing up this house, but we joined her minutes after she first got the property back.
So this is the house.
This is Adriam Salter. She and her sister bought this house in Orleans back in 2018. The home held many happy memories, moments now faded.
I did my traditional wedding right here in this living room, but now looking at it, it's not the happy memories we once shared here. Because we worked hard for this property, and this was supposed to be our family home. My dad is here, he's retired, this is where he was supposed to stay. My sister is coming here with her family, this is where they're supposed to stay.
Salter takes in the dirt, the damage, and the lingering smell the last tenants left behind.
What is that? What is that? I'm disturbed, I'm grossed out. And that was... I can't believe this is the place I used to live. This was my family home. And now it just smells like a zoo. Even a zoo smells better.
She says she's exasperated, worn down after a long battle with her tenants. The couple moved in August 2023. Salter got the property back on September 10th, 2024. Salter says they owe her about $35,000 in unpaid rent.
Because it just feels like I was fighting a battle that was against me from the get-go.
Now, you may think you've heard this story before. Since the pandemic, the Landlord-Tenant Board is backed up, and we've done lots of stories about it. In 2023, for example, it took about 10 months to get a hearing for a non-payment of rent application. Things have improved a bit since then. Those hearings are now being heard usually within about 3 months. But what makes this story different is what Salter found out about her tenants shortly after they moved in.
It's intentional. I'm not the only one she's done it to. There's another landlord, the landlord before me, and the landlord before that, and the landlord before that landlord. So she's done it to 4 of us that we know of.
This was when we first met Salter this past spring. At that point, she was desperate to get her house back from the tenants, Megan and Justin. CBC is not using the couple's last names to prevent identifying their children who have had to move from home to home with them.
Hello?
Hi Megan, it's Robin Miller calling from CBC. We've been in contact with Megan, but she said they didn't want to go on camera for an interview and didn't answer written requests for comment. She did, however, deny any allegations that they are professional tenants. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
My credit has gone down. I'm relying on credit to just pay, just so the bank will not take the house.
Salter claims her tenants knew what they were doing all along, so we looked into it and found that their previous landlords all had very similar experiences, dating back to July 2020, when they moved in here. Miss Gina Kadane was renting out his house to make some extra money. He was living at his friend's house, waiting for his family to arrive in Canada from Sudan. Even though it was years ago, Kadane remembers the tenants like it was yesterday.
Megan and Justin was living here for 1 year, 1 month, 15 days.
Keep in mind, this was during the height of the pandemic. The first temporary moratorium on residential evictions in Ontario was just lifted in August, and the backlog at the LTB was massive. Kadane went to the tribunal but says he didn't have a hearing because he decided to pay the tenants to leave. a cash for keys exchange.
Someone live in your house, not pay. And then when I ask you, when she asked 5,000-6,000, that's so bad. I was sad because this is not fair. She was totally destroyed the house. So it's broken and everything was not good.
He ended up paying them $3,200 to leave his property, which at the time wasn't that uncommon in light of all the delays. But we found out that pattern of unpaid rent continued. This is Taylor and Janie Bastian. Megan and Justin moved into their home in the middle of August 2021. It was just a 7-minute drive from Kadane's house. The Bastians were working in British Columbia for the year and decided to rent out their family home.
It's like a wave of betrayal. Like, I trusted this woman to come into my home. I trusted her with some of the furniture I left. We seemed to bond a bit, even if she's a total stranger. She actually moved in the day, it was her birthday, her 30th birthday. So I had a birthday card for her. The experience of having her in my home has been the most horrible experience of my life.
The Bastians first noticed something was off when rent didn't come in. Taylor ended up coming back to town to repair something in the home and says he tried to end the tenancy then.
At this point, they were behind by $5,200 in rent at that point. That was 2 months. And I said, listen, we're willing to just let you walk away, right? We'll end the lease. She looked at me in the eye, and it's almost like she was laughing. She smiled at me, this big Cheshire grin. And she said, we're not going anywhere. So we're not going anywhere because I have a family member who worked at the LTB, and they're just going to make you negotiate with us. So if I move somewhere else, they're going to charge me just as much. So we're staying put. But I'll never forget it because clearly she was a professional. And she was well armed. She knew the system. She knew the name of every form, the number of every form.
It took the Bastians 1 year and 15 days to evict. They say Megan and Justin did pay back 6 months of rental arrears with the help of a provincial program. In the end, though, LTB documents say they are still owed nearly $11,000 in rent.
It was so dirty in here, it took 3 months to get the smell out after painting and replacing all the carpets, etc. So that was very much a personal attack on our home.
Yes, we win the last 6 months of rent, but there's no way to enforce it. So we haven't seen a penny.
To enforce orders from the LTB, you have to come to small claims court, and that's exactly what Megan and Justin's next landlord did. She had a similar experience where the tenants lived in her house, also in Orleans, for a year and stopped paying rent. A court order shows they owed more than $24,000 in arrears, and documents from small claims court say that Justin was ordered to have his wages garnished, but CBC wasn't able to confirm how much was repaid. Here's what we know. Over a period of 4 years, this couple has lived at 4 separate homes, all in and around the Ottawa suburb of Orleans. In total, their landlords say they racked up nearly $100,000 in unpaid rent. So how can this happen? 3 of the landlords we spoke to for this story say they were tricked, and there were flat-out lies in the rental applications.
When I spoke to this person, the name she gave me is Natalie. I'm sure that's a fake name. I should have mentioned the name, but I'm sure that's a fake name. Called the number. The landlord told me this is an awesome tenant. She has never been late on paying rent. She's amazing. That was all a lie. So I'm grateful that there's a website like Open Room now that landlords could go to.
Open Room is a website that aims to protect landlords and tenants by making LTB rulings easily searchable. The website's co-founder says when she hears about a repeat offender, she thinks professional tenant.
4 times, Robin. I can see 1 time. We have thousands of individuals in the system that have done it for 1 time, and I understand the 1 time there have been issues. 4 times makes me very suspicious that there is something more going on, that they do know how the system is working, that they're able to get away with it, and that there are no repercussions.
This paralegal says since the pandemic, the term professional tenant does come up more often.
There's many good tenants. I want to preface it by saying that. But there are tenants that are educated about the procedures and the delays, and they definitely use them for their advantage. For example, a tenant could not show up at a hearing. The landlord's waited, maybe 6, 8, 10, 12 months for the hearing, gets to the hearing, gets an order, a standard order for arrears of rent, And then the tenant can file a review saying that they were ill that day and they couldn't make it, or they never got the notice that day for the hearing. So then what happens is the order gets stayed and it gets set up for a new hearing, which could be another 2-3 months down the road.
Salter says that's exactly what happened to her. After waiting about 4 months for an LTB hearing, the tenants didn't show. An eviction was ordered 2 months later, but then stayed. The tenants argued they didn't know about the hearing.
But that is all false because I have proof, text messages where the tenant acknowledged that she knows about the hearing that's coming up in March. There's evidence that this tenant is a professional tenant. This stay should have never been granted.
When the next hearing came up, the LTB agreed with Salter. The stay was lifted, but that all took another 2 months.
She refused entry to change the filter. I don't feel motivated mentally. I don't feel motivated emotionally. Like I've just lost faith in a lot of things and in people in general.
Salter says her insurance won't cover the damages and she's on the hook for nearly $40,000. That doesn't include the unpaid rent, the unpaid water bill, or the legal fees. In all, she estimates it's going to cost nearly $100,000, and she has no plans to ever rent this house out again. Robin Miller, CBC News, Ottawa.